Why did they come? Why did they come here?
They were among the first groups that came to this part of the country.
In America, they had opportunity to make something better of themselves and to have a stake. It's important to remember what they did, why they did it, and in the manner in which they did it.
We're very rooted in South Dakota because of the pioneer stories, because they become our stories.
It's important to preserve all the immigrant stories. The Norwegians are just one part of this huge mosaic in the United States.
If you forget where you've been, sometimes you don't know quite where you're going.
One of the main characters in the pioneer story was land.
They came because they had little future in Norway. They weren't the oldest child. The oldest child got the farm.
The Birdall brothers, Andrew and Eric, wrote wonderful journals that helped us to remember their journey from Norway to Winnebago County in Iowa and up to southeast Minnesota and then finally into Dakota Territory. All the memories are there. There were 9 families that came, and there were 11 wagons. The Birdalls came in 3 wagons because they had the largest family. One of the main hardships they suffered, in fact, for the first 4 years they were here, were the Colorado grasshoppers. They would come in and devour all of the plants, all of their grain. Also the snowstorms that came made it very difficult for the families, but they managed to survive.
That story became the factual basis for Giants in the Earth. He met John and James Birdall, and also their sister Jenny, of course, whom he married.
There wouldn't have been Giants in the Earth if it hadn't been for the stories that he heard from the Birdalls in this house.
Giants in the Earth is a book that doesn't whitewash anything.
Giants in the Earth is central for me because it finally took away the romanticism of the pioneer experience.
There was a lot of myths about what it was like to settle the West. His novels just destroyed that.
It's important to acknowledge the pain because that is the real part of our lives. We lived with death and we lived with birth as well.
The Nordland Fest was an amazing event.
Their motto was education, preservation, and celebration. We were bringing people from Norway and other Scandinavian countries, dancing groups and singing groups and bands, and then we had food. That's the thing that seems to connect us most easily with our heritage.
The basis for their lives are right here. Family, faith, education.
The house was a very authentic display of how people lived in that period.
I have memories of the house when it was out on the farm and going out and picking plums from the plum trees that were there that were no doubt printed by my great-grandparents.
My great-grandparents' pictures are in one of the rooms. Also, I have a picture here of the family that was taken in 1903 in front of the house.
During one winter that was so terribly, terribly cold, they had to break up the organ and burn it for wood, for heat. And I cannot imagine how painful that was, making that kind of a sacrifice.
Once they established a house, they really did not want to lose the church, which had been the center of their lives in Norway.
They were living in a sod house, and what was one of the first things they wanted to do? To start a congregation.
This is where the choirs were, and so this is where young people would often meet.
And then we have the schoolhouse here. Education was so important because that's how they were going to make something of themselves. The writing cabinet, of course, fits in with the education and keeping the story alive.
The first draft of Giants in the Earth was written in the cabin.
If you think about Per Hansa and Barrett, they're kind of two sides of the immigrant story. There is the wonderful thing about coming to a new place and establishing a new home, and then there's the pain of being torn up from your roots. When this novel came out in the American translation, it sold, I forget how many 100,000 copies, and it's never been out of print, getting close to 100 years. It has to speak to us somehow, and I think that demolishing that myth of the frontier and the pioneer and showing the hardship and showing what the cost of it was very important, both for immigrants and for Americans in general. We know that because there's been responses from Americans of all kinds of backgrounds that say, I read Giants in the Earth and it was so great because it told my story.
It represents a vast number of families who came and settled in this part of the country.
It's that heritage that we hang our hat on. It helps me connect to the people that I come from.
It is who we are and whose we are.